Hello and welcome to the Dungeon Masters Guild House. This week I am all by myself. And funny story about that, today was a recording day for me. I had 2 interviews lined up, and through no fault of either of my guests, they were unable to attend today. So I wanted to get an episode out, and I had a thought. I've sat down. I've done 2 of these now, and I haven't really actually ever answered some of these questions myself, which I think might be important. I think people may want to know a little bit more about me, maybe now that I've sort of thrown it out there as a sort of budding DMsGuild creator. So yeah, I think this is probably going to be a short episode because it's just me trying to hold a conversation with myself. And while I do make many good points, most of which I agree with, I'll just we'll just sort of get straight to the point, really. So what sort of products am I known for? First and foremost, I write adventures. My first product was Craven Hall, which was like a little I guess like a little town based around the idea of like this huge graveyard. And from there, then I started dipping in and getting involved in a few collaborations. And it's sort of expanded out. I think that's what's been great about collaborations is it's sort of allowed to sort of expand my horizons slightly. So I did some sidekicks in Mist Kickers with Oliver Clegg and a bunch of talented people. But then I also wrote another adventure for Adventures in Chronomancy, which I believe is in a bundle. Shameless plug. As well as, I did some maps as well for Attack on Inverness, which was a fun little product to do. I had that whole tower. But yeah, for the most part, with the things I'm working on at the moment, and everything else, I'm an adventures guy. I like writing adventures. How long have I been doing it? So I started in May 2019. So I am fresh baby into this. I can believe I can get the actual date. June. So I lied. I didn't start in May. I started in June. And yeah, so I'm not even hit my first year yet. And I think I'm doing all right. I'm happy with how my products are doing, and I've got more coming up. I think it's fascinating to sort of join the DMsGuild in what feels like almost like a D&D a D&D 5th edition golden period. I don't want to say it's the golden age of D&D, because I'm sure there's been 100 ones before, and I'm a naive person to say anything else. But it's nice to. I think I joined it at a good time. And it's nice to sort of see the community that sort of continues to grow, and with things like the RPG writer workshop, there's always a huge influx of writers. But I think I'm in it for a fairly long haul. There's been nothing about creating on the DMsGuild that has sort of deterred me away. So I think I want to hit a year, and then I can. When it's June 2020, and I'm grey-haired and just a shell of a man. Then I may reassess things, but that's going to be a whole other process. Sorry, who knew talking by yourself was thirsty work. So, what is my creative process? I have a template that I like to use. It's like an adventure template, and I'm the sort that I very much like to mimic the official D&D products where possible. Just because I think my mindset is, okay, well, this is published professional material, and if I can mimic that, or if I can get my products to the point where you can hold them side by side and say either they both could be. That's what I like. So when I first started, I was looking at Tales from the Yawning Portal, because that was actually the only adventure book I had at the time. And they had a very nice sort of template of introduce the story, introduce the background to the adventure, What are the plot hooks? How are players going to get involved? Who are some of the important characters? And then you just go from sort of location to location. And that's generally how my ideas start as well. Is I think of interesting places or characters to interact with. I think for the most part as well. So it's not enough to just have characters in a location. The locations themselves need to be interesting or magical. They need to be challenging. I think what I like to try and do is, I think enough people have four goblins in the cave. Now, I think a lot less people have maybe fought four goblins in a cave with a massive chasm in the middle. But again, it's probably a lot of people still have. I'm not saying, oh, I'm so unique. But I try and think of exciting locations that players wouldn't visit otherwise, because just by the novelty of being somewhere new can take otherwise average encounters. Even just like, hey, put them on a cliff. That's always fun. Either one, players can throw goblins into. It's always goblins. It has to be goblins. Either one, they can throw goblins into the pit, or players might get cocky and try and get shoved into the pit themselves. But yeah, so it's generally I have this template, and it's changed and adapted over time slightly, especially with as I've read up on more products and been inspired by other products on the DMsGuild. I've been reading a lot of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and I like the flow of reading it. Again, I haven't run it yet. I do have aspirations to run a Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Despite hearing it's probably some challenging, but I think I might be ready for that. But I guess the replayability is always good. Just because if you are writing content on the DMsGuild, it is nice to be able to give something to the DM, in the sense that they could, if they choose to, if they enjoy your content and wish to replay it another time, giving them something to sort of change it up. And my next project that I'm working on, I'm probably just going to reveal it here. Going off my my chat with RP Davis, I'm doing a Volo murder mystery. I'm going to kill Volo. It's been decided. And for that, I think I'm mirroring the style of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, because it's set in Waterdeep. It's gonna sort of be a compendium thing. And yeah, so that actually feeds into the question of where do my ideas start? They just people throw around ideas, and I go, that's pretty cool. I think I like to sort of I do get inspired by official D&D products, and seeing how can I help the people out there include something interesting. And sometimes it's interesting to look at official D&D products and take things out of context. So off the top of my head, I've got looking at my adventure notes and stuff I have for future things. I've got one where it's these war machines in Avernus are really cool. Let's just take one out and put one in the Forgotten Realms. Just have it appear in a portal and just cause havoc, and then now the players have to deal with this. And if they've previously been to Avernus or they've never been, it's either a gateway in, or it's just oh no, we've dealt with this before, we can handle it again. Favorite part of a project is it is nice, the ideas part, where it's all sort of oh, it could be anything. And I do like writing some of the nitty gritty character stuff, flaws, bonds, ideals, personality traits, and any opportunity to write a quote in or a character's quote. I do like that, just because I feel like if for D&D, sometimes being able to summarize a character with a single good quote. I think Volo does it quite Volo, because he's on the top of my head. But Robin, actually, you know what? Robin Hood is a good example. If you look at some of his quotes, where I think he says along the lines of You know what? I think we're literally gonna do this live. Let's get this excuse my chunky keyboard. Haha, here we go. So basically, I had written it down recently. At the end of the day, I fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. If that makes me an outlaw, so be it. I've been called worse. Such a nice quote. I think it was such a nice quote. It was worth the seconds of flapping about. See, this is what happens when I'm left to my own devices. So yeah, so those are sort of the part where I can sort of let strong characters that players can interact with throughout the plot. Those always are fun. Least favorite part of the project? That is a tough one. I think sometimes it is the location or describing rooms. Just because you have if you're just like describing a large manor, there are really interesting rooms. You have like the library, which is always like a wealth of interesting books, or the ballroom, and they have like particular engravings. The kitchen, where you have like characters and like things. But there are like weird rooms, like the stock room, the the bathrooms, the small rooms that they need to be there for like it to make logical sense for this house to exist. They're just not the most fun to write about. And you want to avoid the part where every room has like, a quarter of a page describing its contents. Sometimes you just don't need that unless it is important to the story or important to the thing as large. You just need to write like a single bullet point of what's in there. But even then, sometimes that's hard because you're trying to write a nice way of saying there's nothing there, or what would be there that's not interesting. Because again, if that's the problem as well. If you make the bathroom too interesting, players may assume that there is something interesting in there, and they would spend way too much time in a bathroom when they should be out, adventuring. Now, what's something I wish I learned earlier? I guess how collaborative things could be, and I know this is a sentiment that has been echoed like over the last two interviews. It's what's satisfying about doing a collaboration, especially one that you don't lead, is the ability to hand off a project as like, this is my content and this is done. But then also on the flip side, so I've organized two projects now. One's already out, and I've got another one pending soon. But just by having like a bunch of people submit their own ideas, you get things that you just wouldn't have thought of otherwise. Good, solid, amazing things that you think, that is so good. Or even just by giving people a prompt and where they take that prompt and run with it. I think as well, having my first project release and have some sort of like middling success. I mean, it didn't flop-ish, but then I put it out there for a fairly cheap price. I think that's another thing. I have two things. One, the benefit. The benefit of collaborations. But second, there was definitely a moment that shifted of valuing your products. And it's tough. It is hard, especially when it's your first thing that you're putting out there, because you don't want to overvalue it and get no sales, and even worse if you undervalue it and then it gets like. But I'm finding that, well, at least for me, because I'm not using the DMsGuild as like, it's still just very much a hobby for me. I've not got any sort of like I'm not going to go hungry if things don't work out. So that sort of relieves some of the stress from it and allows me to sort of just throw things out there and see how they get well received. And I think with each product you get more confident with, this is how much I'm selling it for. I believe it to be worth this much. And you can always, again, what's great about the DMs Guild is there is a wealth of products that you can just sort of like compare and contrast. You can sort of see how, okay, well, this person did this product, they priced it at this. My product's pretty similar. I should just price it at that. And now there's a whole lot of arguments about, you know, how to price your product. I should say I'm not well trained or versed in any of this. I'm very much fumbling around in the dark. But I have, you know, there's some people out there who are more than happy to sort of occasionally hold a torch or point me in the right way, which is a very sort of, a very, very cute analogy. What's a dream project of mine? Sorry, I'm just blitzing through the questions. That's a tough one. I don't really have one immediately on my mind. I think I have a lot of like smaller projects because I like I said, I think it is easy to get. Like I said, I could write a whole, like if I wanted to, I could dedicate myself and write maybe like a whole campaign, a multi-tiered adventure thing, and it would be very time consuming. But I don't think I would enjoy it. I think what I like about one-shot adventures is, one, they're appealing from a consumer standpoint because you can just pick up, plug in, and play. But also from a creator standpoint is I'm never a huge amount of work away from finishing one, especially now that I've got like the template and the format done. That I can just sort of go through and write an adventure and then sort of move it on. I like, okay, the cliche or crummy answer for what my dream project is. I'd like to work on an official, but I think that's more high aspirational. Or a dream project, you could say. Yay! There you go. I fumbled into answering the question. Who is someone in the DMsGuild community that currently inspires me? Geez, the list could go on. I think at the moment it's Justice. He sort of came onto the scene. Yeah, was it shortly after I did, and he's just sort of been knocking it out the park. Just his attitude. He is a beacon of light and cheeriness. Yeah, all his products has a clear stamp of professional quality that is inarguable. That seems like you cannot argue with the quality that's there. Yeah, and like I said, that should I list more people? I'm gonna say, like I said, I'm gonna hold off saying any more because if I just hear spend the next 10 minutes gushing about other people, it may make it awkward for them when they eventually get on this show, because I will get them on this show one way or another. What am I currently working on? So I have a few products in the work. So first and foremost, I'm killing Volo. That much has been decided. There is also I have some collaborations on the go that I can't really talk about, mostly because it's not. Yeah, like I said, that's the thing. When you're collaborating on a project that you're not lead on, it feels weird to sort of announce or say anything. What was the other project that I started typing? I put some words down on a page. It was an adventure. Let's have a look. This is literally how live we go. And there's benefits of being by a computer and not being held down by Ah, yes. Okay, there's two. I think I'm probably going to use this as an opportunity to announce that. I could. Okay, I have a goblins lot on the mind because I have a goblin-related product coming out soonish, maybe like late Feb. Um, that is a product that I've led and has had an amazing collection of people collaborating on it. It has been absolutely joy. So I'm not going to spoil much more than that. But it's involving myself, Adam, Jimmy Merritt, and Ryan again. So it's been a good sort of core group that's sort of been fun to sort of bounce ideas off of. And the adventure that I spoke about is I want to write something about modrons. And it seems like I'm probably going to have two products back to back, both set in Waterdeep. And this it's going to be a fun one. It's modrons in Waterdeep, but each modron has set up their own faction. And it's also supported by lore. I know modrons aren't typically ones to go. Well, actually, they're all rogue modrons, so it kind of gives you a little bit of like hand wavy to do what you want. But they all have a single order that they've all interpreted differently, which has led to these 4 different factions being created. It's very, very exciting. And lastly, where can people get news about my work? Mostly just Twitter. At Whitby Writes. Again, you've probably seen it on the screen the whole time, or if you're listening in audio form, it's at Whitby Writes, WHITBY WRITES. That would have been very embarrassing if I couldn't spell. But yeah, so that's pretty much it, really. Like I said, so hopefully the problems hassling my guests are quickly remedied. So they will be, one of them will be ready for next week, and then the week after that. Because I would like this to be a weekly thing. And I didn't want to spring this on. I don't want to spring on people like, hey, can you be a guest today? I'd rather people give people a little bit more time to sort of prepare the questions, answers to the questions, and just sort of let the conversation flow. But yeah, so hopefully this wasn't a hugely boring. This was very sort of self-indulgent. Thank you for listening through this of me just going, oh, I'm such an auteur. And I hope my ramblings haven't been too incoherent. They have been incoherent, but hopefully not too at a level that is unacceptable in this day and age. But yeah, I'm trying. I still haven't thought of a witty way to end these things. I don't think I ever will. I think that's just one of the facts of life. So I will end this here. I guess thanks again for popping by. Bit of a weird one this week, but now you should know a little bit more about me. If not, you've just heard me ramble for a while. And be sure to tune in next week when we will have a guest. One way or another, I will get a guest. And bye. Bye.